Who's got the clap?
I don't.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Here, I should probably do it by the microphone.
The clap.
Ladies and gentlemen, the clap.
Why would you say that?
Because somebody out there has it.
This is
This is what? It's 2024.
This is the Here's the Deal podcast, the Max Baker Jr. story. And technically, this will be the very first episode of 2024.
Not technically, it really will be.
Yeah.
But we're recording it in 2023.
And what do we got? 3 days left?
3 days left, yeah.
You think we'll make it?
Man, if we don't, I'm going to be pissed after I edit this thing.
To get this
I spent
close?
a lot of time to make these episodes, get them all mixed down. And if I finish it and the shit ends before everybody gets to hear it, I'm going to be real mad.
Yeah, but you know what? 2023, it's been a hell of a race.
Hey, it could happen. You know, they canceled New Year's Eve opening night here in the city. So
When's the last time you went to opening night in downtown Oklahoma City?
let's see. They had it 37 years.
You know,
Do you want to know the number of years I went or the last time I went?
The last time you went.
I never went, Jay.
I didn't think so.
For me, you know what? I went a few times. You know, it was kind of like a tradition. You know, you always knew that you could get together and have a house party, and you know, some would venture off and some wouldn't. You know, back in the day, it was all about house parties. You know that, Jeff. You know that,
Especially for New Year's, because
Right.
the pre Uber days and Lyft days, it was almost impossible to get a taxi on New Year's Eve.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
it was damn
You know,
near impossible.
And then too, towing your car, getting your car towed because you're drunk. They didn't have that back then.
Yeah, Tipsy Toe's only been around the last 10 years or so.
You know, I can tell you this one New Year's Eve story that it was when around I was probably 18, 19.
So back in the 70s.
Yeah, driving. And New Year's Eve, up where I wasn't supposed to be, you know, transmission went out. Had no forward, had reverse. So on New Year's Eve, higher than Cooter Brown, I drove from the north side to the south side, not on any city street. Parking lots and whatever I could do.
Oh, you were really doing the back roads.
Oh yeah, it was, and I made it. I made it to my mom and dad's house and backed into the yard. And next morning, woke up and went, "Wow, man, my transmission's out." You know, my dad having a transmission shop, he didn't quite blow a gasket as he would have if I would have called him.
Let me ask you a question. Do you remember what you were doing 40 years ago on New Year's?
40.
Yep. It would have been 1983 going into 84.
Well, I was 4 years old or 3 years old getting ready to be 4.
You know what? I can't answer that.
There was an album that came out at midnight, which was Van Halen's 1984. Remember?
Oh, wow.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And there was a big snowstorm. Because I remember we got the record and then got snowed in my buddy's apartment, a bunch of us, and all we had was a lot of alcohol and that 1984 album.
Well,
and by the second day of 1984, I could sing you every word.
But let
every
me
song
ask you,
on that album.
me ask you a question. As you got snowed in 84, did you have that illegal cannabis?
Yes, we did, but it wasn't anything like the quality we have today. But if you remember, though, back then you'd find something good through the year and you'd save it up for Christmas or New Year's.
Right.
You know, you'd have to.
you
have
held on
that
to it,
special.
you know,
that
you
was
had
set back.
Listen, it's kind of like fine wine.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, hey, this is, or if you know, I don't even want to get into those.
Someone was telling me the other day, they're like, see, it's not that like that anymore because if you want something really good, you just go down to the store and buy it.
Right,
now, you know?
right.
But we didn't have that option 40 years ago.
I mean, I can also think of one New Year's Eve that it was a snowstorm and we had money riding on it we threw a hell of a New Year's Eve party with the band Cold Gin
That was
at Alcatraz.
That was 30 years ago, because that was in 93.
Okay. I can remember the night like 93, and then for Glutton for Punishment,
Actually,
we stopped that.
We stopped that night and did the countdown.
Yes.
They did the countdown on stage. And Cold Gin, who was in Cold Gin?
It was a hell of a band. Tommy Thayer, Black and Blue, who went on to be Ace, finished it out. Jamie St. James on drums, who was Peter Criss, singer for Black and Blue. There was another guy, I think his name was Anthony. He was in a band called Cold Sweat.
They were really good. It was a really good band.
Honestly, Cold Gin was, at certain nights, to me, they were better than Kiss.
And this was New Year's Eve of '93. In fact, I have a video of that show.
Wow.
They were shot. You know, they had that room that was up top or whatever.
I mean, Cold Gin was the start of it, because from then, that's where your Kiss conventions came from.
Correct.
Because the same people that run those, I was good friends with, Shelley Berglund and Tommy Thayer. I mean, you know, that revamped Kiss's career, but we won't get into that. But God rest their soul.
Were there any
Cold Gin at Rock City first, and then and then we did them on
June.
New Year's Eve. Then we did them New Year's Eve in '93.
Were there any local bands
Oh
opening
yeah,
up?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Well, Billy Rocket.
I think it was Billy Rocket. There was one other band.
Was the other one over there called
93
Gin?
No, in
Judge and
'92.
Jury
In '92, it was Joe Mama.
Oh yeah, Joe Mama the first time, because they were
And
a package.
I have my shirt that says what was it? I did Joe Mama on the back.
I just posted a picture about that, you know, but I guess where we're going with this, Jay, and you had mentioned it too. All three of us sitting here have, you know, this episode is going to be about, and what 2024 for Max Baker Jr. is going to be all about, is never forgetting where you come from. And so,
shouldn't it be about never forgetting to
turn off
your phone?
telephone? I'm sorry, guys. You can leave that in there. Business as usual.
He pushed pause. It's not even anybody important, is it?
It's going to be turned off. You blew my vibe, phony.
You had a thought you were trying to complete.
So back to where I was. It's
Did you unpause it?
Did you unpause it?
I never paused it. I just let it roll.
2024. Never forget where you come from. And so with that being said, all three of us sitting at this couch all come from the street. We also come from music, local music. And none of us would have never met if it wasn't for that. And so with that being said, you know, there's been talk throughout this podcast, Jay being a band member, playing in some of my shows. We done a ton of local shows. I help, you know, the thought of it. So Jay here goes out, and I'll let him pick up from there. But you know, we want to talk about the local scene in Oklahoma.
Then or now or everything
All
in
of it.
between?
How it's came to this, where it was, you know, and this isn't just Oklahoma. This is in every city from where you're listening to. You could look around and see today how live local music, I think, is more relevant than ever, being out there, you know, without having labels and everything. But what I would like to talk about from Jay's point of view is playing and as radio, and then I'll talk about my point of view of where I see it, and then Jeff's the same way. But whoever wants to start, you can start by where you went this last weekend.
Yeah, so the idea came from on Saturday, December 23rd. I drove up to Tulsa to the Canes Ballroom to go to a show and to interview a few bands that I've been trying to interview for a while for the local talent show. So the headlining band were from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they're called Cliff Diver. And they played Riot Fest in 2022 in Chicago.
That's a big deal.
Huge deal.
Yeah.
They put out.
I've been to it 3 times with my boys.
You were
It's a big
probably
deal.
there that year.
No, we didn't go that
You
year.
went the year before, didn't you?
No, we went in like 15, 16.
Well, wasn't that the Misfits reunion you
Yeah,
went
we
to?
saw them there. We saw NWA reunite. I mean, it's just if you ever want to venture and go see a badass festival with 4 stages, 6 stages, it's 6 because they have 2 little ones. You should go to Riot Fest in Chicago. It's every September.
Didn't you see Yellow Wolf there too?
I saw Yellow Wolf there. I saw Faith No More there. This is all in one day. Merle Haggard,
Wow.
No Doubt, Cypress Hill. But the one I'll never forget, the year Austin and Dylan. You know how they always got the jump on the music with the Suicide Boys and
Right,
things
right.
like that. Well, one year we went, and they were all like, "Dude, Dad, we got to be at noon on Sunday for Post Malone." And I'm like, "Who the hell's Post Malone?" You know. And so, you know, and Dylan, being how not very many people know it, but Post Malone's name is Austin, and he comes from a hardcore scene in Dallas, Texas.
Arlington, Texas.
And Post Malone was just a gimmick, so to speak. But, you know, they were into it, had this tape, had to see the guy. So, you know, we got up. We were in there early. There might have been 50, 60 people around that guy's stage. I witnessed that. And look at him now. You
Massive.
know? So Riot Fest, I mean, I saw the last time Motorhead played
Oh yeah.
there.
Wow.
Anthrax, Gore, System of a Down, Social D. I mean, the list goes on. But no, Riot Fest, exactly what it is.
When they played, they were one of the bands that stole the show that everybody was talking about.
Right.
And they just like Post Malone, they were one of those bands that played early on a small stage in the middle of the day, and they completely destroyed.
Right.
And so they've slowly been getting bigger and bigger, and I've been trying to interview them for over a year now, but it's just never worked out because they've been on the road. You know, it's just difficult.
They work. They're a working band.
And so I reached out to Joey, one of the singers in the band, because they're a 7-piece band.
Wow.
And he got back with me and said, absolutely, you know, we'd love to. And I wanted to go to this show in particular because there were 2 other Oklahoma bands on the show. One from Oklahoma City named Ben Quad, and then another band from the Muskogee, Tulsa area called When the Clock Strikes, and they are a total pop-punk band. The other band on the bill was from Chicago called Action Adventure, and they were really good. But I didn't talk to them. I talked to all of the Oklahoma bands. And Joey was talking about what it was like the first time he heard his band's song on the radio. Even though it was a college radio station in Claremore, it was still the first time he ever heard him on the radio.
Right.
He said he pulled over in tears. You know, and I told him, I said, well, I still remember exactly where I was when I heard my band's song played on the radio the first time, and I kind of did the same thing. Like, you know, pull over, you freak out, you know, all of that stuff. And so after these 3 interviews happen, and the show starts, I go inside, and this place is packed. The Canes is completely packed. These are 3 local bands and 1 other band, and not really a headliner either.
It's a beautiful feeling when
they
that
were one of
happens.
the
It is.
opening bands, and they pre-sold.
Those are the nights that you wish lasted forever.
They pre-sold over 1,000 tickets, and the rest was
When you know you're doing good.
And I'm sure they did over 1,500, you know, maybe 1,600, and it got me thinking. I haven't seen some local bands pack out the Canes like that since you were doing shows, Max. Now, the Turnpike Troubadours, Cody Canada's,
but
the Hangover Balls, that's a little bit different.
That's what Canes is about.
Right.
But what you're talking about is when you take metal bands or
And these are emo and pop punk bands, even more niche.
A whole different genre, and you can feel that room, I mean, that's the love. You know how you talked about getting your band played on the radio and how it felt? Well, think about from a guy who's a management person who's trying his hardest to do it with nothing, just hustle. And, everybody's dogging you, but the bands that you pick that want to work with you, and you push them and make it to that level, it's a beautiful feeling too.
So were the band selling tickets, or was this just out of the box office? Or?
Out of the box office and online.
That's tough.
Wow.
Because Ben Quad, Cliff Diver, and Action Adventure have all...
But that's the system how you work it nowadays.
They've all been on tour together.
Right.
This was the last night of that tour.
So it was a tour, it was a package.
So this was a package that Canes bought.
Or they may
gave
have...
a door
Right,
but
right.
it wasn't a radio station, Christmas party, or nothing like that.
But here's the cool thing about that, and I have nothing but mad respect for these two, Chad Rogers and Hunter Rogers.
Telling you, man.
Exactly.
Taking the chance.
Keeping it alive.
Them dudes are rock stars,
Keeping it
solid
alive.
in my book.
And
Chad and Hunter, they're doing it right.
And let me just tell you, you guys are going to be so happy when you hear this. That place still operating like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
From the bartenders to the production staff getting bands on and off stage to the barbecue restaurant next door, what I used to call
It's a machine.
Bob's. It was glorious. I just sat back and smiled. I was so happy to see it.
The cool part about it for me is when I step in there is at some point in my life I had a part to play in all of that.
Yep. Remember when we first started doing shows there, Canes was at the end of the dark street. You didn't go past. You didn't go past that bridge.
You couldn't go past the bridge.
No.
You took your life in your own hands.
Yeah. And there was nothing open around there. It was dark.
It's what I like to call there's the pre and post drop ceiling era.
Well, yeah, and then you had the backstage area was sacred ground back then.
Oh,
but it was
yeah.
also heavily guarded because of the riffraff that went on outside.
And sometimes you let the riffraff in.
Right.
It's weird because we actually did this in two different cities. Watched a dead area of town come back and be revitalized, and we were a part of it.
The saddest part about Cane's Ballroom is it's been hit by urban growth,
gentrification
around it, and has shamed the place by where you could see the light on the highway to where if you don't know where you're looking for, you might miss it.
Well, look at the places in Bricktown that we used to do shows.
Same
thing. You wouldn't recognize the buildings that we were doing stuff in. I mean, you really wouldn't. I mean, it's like when we very first started doing shows in Bricktown when nobody else would do shows down there, and David Box had the building down there. The building's gone now. That little outside amphitheater's gone.
But back to the local scene, local bands.
One more thing before we move on. Mm-hmm. I walked through the venue and was just looking at the faces in the crowd because that's one thing I do is I always walk through and I try to look to see what
size them up.
Yeah, what type of demographic
that's
is
what
here.
I do. That's what I do in the casinos.
Who are these people who are buying tickets? Where are they coming from? Especially when you pack the place like that. I'm going through there, and I maybe see one person I know. Maybe that's it.
That's the crazy part right there.
Right.
It's a whole different generation.
It's got to where when you say that, like I've been to shows where I don't know a soul. Mm-hmm. I mean, even locally, it's like, and Jeff will tell you this. He travels with me a lot, and we see a lot of stuff out of town. And dude, I get people saying, "Hey, Max Baker, out of town more so than I can locally," and it's not planned or anything like that. It just happens.
It was weird for me to walk through there because normally I recognize a lot of people. Now, obviously, I recognize the people who were working, but the patrons of the show
have changed.
It's completely changed.
You know, I mean,
completely changed.
It's changed, but then again too.
But they're still there, and they're still supporting.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think this? And as we're talking about, never forget where you come from. Local bands, especially, you got to have the street. You got to, do you think a lot of this was street hustle on their part through the use of internet?
Absolutely.
And through the use of the common tools that a band has now.
Absolutely.
To work with.
Absolutely.
Compared to like back then, this is the beautiful. If you're listening to this, and especially if you're any band that's ever played on the stages with myself, Jeff, or Jay, or all of us, or whatever the case may be, you know what? It was a straight up hustle. It was
hustle.
It was, and to get
every show
to
was
get
a hustle.
1,000 people, 800 people, and it was band competition. But the thing about the band competition, which is the difference now, let me ask you a question, then I'll move on to what I got to say. How many people left after those bands? Did the crowd get thinner or did it stay?
Stayed.
Okay.
It got thicker all the way to the end.
So now you're talking about a scene.
Yeah.
Because
not just followers of individual
what I've seen
bands.
in this scene is when we started, bands, when you had your ticket and say you liked, I'm going to name 6 bands, Forte, Sinners and Saints,
Judge and
Jury, Ugly Stick, Spooky Fruit, Element, Fear the Clown. I could give you a whole list. Low Life. Those bands sold tickets. Those bands brought people. But the other part of it is, what if, and usually there were 6 bands on there, what if all of them worked together and it wasn't a competition at the end of the night? Everybody went to so-and-so's house and they threw a party and we threw down. That's a scene. Whereas these guys right here, they're working it. And the cool thing about local band shows, back in the day, they didn't leave. They got stronger.
Yep.
They did.
And it was packed. Then as it wore on, it got to, and other promoters came in. You have bands now that, they may buy to be on.
Mm-hmm.
They don't sell a ticket. Mm-hmm. And they don't even promote the show. There's no, back then too, we had rules. You had to sell so many, or you couldn't play on the stage. Or the incentive was, you want to be special guest?
I'm going to say this, Max, because it's a point of contention for a lot of bands. And it's something that has rubbed me the wrong way for years and years and years. You say that there were rules, as there were a certain number of tickets you had to sell to be on the show.
Contract.
And that's correct. You had a contract, a legal binding entertainment contract. And in that contract, it stated what you were responsible for, what your payout was going to be based off of ticket sales, and the breakdown was there. If you sold more than the minimum amount,
all you had to do was read it.
It said in the contract exactly how much money you were going to make. Your hard work and your effort was going to pay you X number of dollars.
It's life today.
And it also stated in there what you were paying for. The venue and the cost.
What the promoter
the
would provide.
The security.
Exactly.
The sound. The stagehands. And it also
advertising.
Put in detail your advertising campaign for this show. And it was usually an ad in the Gazette or an ad in Urban Tulsa. And then there was usually a radio campaign that went with the Cat or with a station in Tulsa or whatever town you were doing it in. And
printed.
And as much flyers as you could handle. Street teams.
It was never a question whether or not Max was going to have flyers printed. That was guaranteed. You were picking those up when you picked up your tickets, because he wanted to make sure that you had the materials to go out
to
and
do
hustle.
your job
and promote the job.
Now you say there was a minimum number of tickets, and I played several shows for you. That minimum number of tickets was 40 tickets.
Right.
40.
And my motto was, if you can't bring 40 people to a show, you shouldn't be playing live music.
And you are 100% correct. And you know what else I never had to do on any of your shows? I never had to price match merch. I never had to give up a percentage of merch. I always had stage hands. You
didn't have to touch your gear.
No.
You know,
you better get out of the building when it was time to go.
There was another thing that went with selling those tickets.
And I always made money.
Because when you sold tickets, that was also another way of getting word on the street. We didn't have social media. So, you had your
radio
ads,
was expensive.
You had your radio and you had your flyers, but also if you had the bands out there selling the tickets, they were getting words out to their friends. And if people were holding tickets, or like, hey, I got a ticket to this Saturday show.
You were able to give out music.
Do you remember when in the mail you would get those tins from AOL that had the discs,
right?
That had they were giving you so many free minutes to use of AOL. So I made friends with a mail carrier, and he told me that they had just thousands upon thousands of these that never got delivered because those are delivered in bulk, and you take them to every address, and then there's all these left over. I got as many of them as I possibly could, threw all the contents away, all of it. And I took my palm sander and I sanded all that ink off there and sanded it down smooth, got some black primer paint, spray painted it black, made a stencil with my band's logo, printed stickers that had a track listing and had 2 songs, and I burned CDs and had them labeled and all that with 2 songs. And every time we would give away a flyer, we would give away those 2 songs for free.
But
every time
you go back to all this, talking about this band Cliff Diver, and talking about the past. We go from the past to fast forward, and this is what you have. These are the tools you have nowadays to work with. Never when we were doing music, to get us played on the Cat was unheard of. The only station, there was 2, and that's how I met you, was the College Station,
Rogers State,
in Rogers, and the Edge with Amber starting off, and then involved into you, and then and that was a godsend. But then
Zubek show here on what was it, on Tuesday nights or whatever.
But he was more into the the samurai culture and some of the other things like that. I mean, you got to understand. Bands like Oliver Magnum, bands like Forte, bands like Ibex, Power Lord, Spooky Fruit, Element, Low Life, 80 Proof. I could go on and on and on. Vor.
Where I try to be inclusive to all the genres. I don't really know all of these bands or go see them live, but I try to include as many of them that would fit on the Cat as possible.
But the cool thing about it is that was a scene. There was a unity. Just like with this Cliff Diver thing, you know what? You're talking about a band that's on tour. But what I want to get into is...
It really made me think about some of those metal shows you did, Max, where the side room may not have been open yet, but there was just one stage happening, and it may have been a full day of bands, but the Canes would be packed. There would be well over 1,400 people. And bands like Horse Called War that I got to see for the first time in a different town than where they're from, playing on a great stage and a great venue.
It also made for a community to where you could trade shows and things like that,
Yes.
This was way before cover bands.
And David Souders had his homegrown deal, which would also promote all the local stuff.
And I mean, and then you had what I call the total underground scene. You had metal over here with me doing it, and then you had Daryl Bascom doing the alternative with the lips and a whole new flaming lips and a whole new sound of things that and it just it was a cool time. And nowadays is even a cool time. And what I look about to being able to be in the music business and the entertainment business for, I'd say, what is this, my 36th year?
Something like that.
And I'm still not there, but what I see nowadays is the opportunity for for people and bands and even rappers and things like that to make music, any kind of music. Never forget where you came from. But nowadays, more than ever, local music we're talking Oklahoma City. I can remember just starting out. I can remember in Oklahoma City where we had the Samurai.
Yep.
We had the Diamond Ballroom.
Mm-hmm.
What was the Charlie's Place? Didn't they have bands play there?
I'm going way back.
Way back, okay.
The Diamond, Achiro's Place, Samurai.
When did Samurai open and start doing music?
Oh, it was
like early 80s.
Yeah, yeah. And then he didn't get more into rock, I don't think, until the Cat was a little bit established. And
to
so,
like the late 80s.
So you had him.
So that's kind of what started, the thought-provoking process of this episode was over the weekend, there's a new venue called Beam Live that is where the upstairs bar of Belle Isle Brewery was. Belle Isle, the restaurant and bar, is still there downstairs, but upstairs...
Well, they're trying to make it like a bar-type theater, Oklahoma City needs one. I say this, but then as we go on, but I want to get back to there were very few, or the other venues were the ones that we did.
So,
VFW
so that band that played there, Bellevue,
yes,
they were a Samurai regular band, correct?
Absolutely.
Back in the day,
Yeah, they were a very large draw. Neil Taylor, Bellevue was,
like early mid-90s.
Yeah, they were huge. Wakeland was
okay,
huge.
that's what I was going to ask. If it was the Wakeland era when Wakeland was big.
Dirt Poets,
Chainsaw Kittens. There was a bunch
Otis
of them.
Watkins, but
Easy
like Samurai. Achiro had, he had these certain bands that they filled up the weekend.
12
nights.
O'Clock High.
12 O'Clock High.
Malice to Ride.
Well, they were more rock. These were more like alternative type beer drink. Drink at college. So, but you're right. They had Bellevue, which Neil Taylor and Lance Durker is in a badass. If you love Tom Petty, any chance you can get, go see the band out Insider, a celebration to the music of Tom Petty. It is as real as Tom Petty gets. I promise you. I bet my life on it.
So they posted a picture, and they got Achiro to come out.
Yeah, I saw that.
And,
yes.
And so that got me thinking about all of these bands that were, before my time, but you guys were doing shows with. And, Jeff, you said you uncovered a tub of old local band T-shirts that you've had over the years. So you mentioned 12 O'Clock
some Samurai
High.
stuff. I found a couple of Samurai jackets. 12 O'Clock High. I found what was Easy Access, Malice to Ride, Spooky Fruit.
You talk
Ugly Stick. There's a bunch of them.
So with Achiro, he had a market.
Mm-hmm.
Like Wednesday night, and it didn't matter if you were bored back in the day, wherever if you were looking for something to do.
Wednesday night was the night?
Any night of the Samurai, but Wednesday night was if you were looking for girls. The Hot Mama contest was paying, and that got crazy.
See, so
For Greg
I've been filling in for Zubek, pretty much, the 3 last weeks of December, because he took his annual sabbatical vacation, and.
Do you have to talk like Zubek?
No, but
you got to get on
but
the air.
I did a couple of times, and the 2 times, the whole time I haven't. There's 2 bands that I've been waiting to play, just so I could do it, and they would never come up. And one was Zeppelin, and one was Rat. And so
I got one for
this
you.
This past week, I got to get the lead out, and I got to rat-a-tat-tat on the cat-a-cat-cat.
Oh, wow.
There's one other one. There's one other one that's been gone by the wayside that needs to be played. I think he would play it either Friday.
You're the one who told me about this.
Friday at noon or Friday at 5 o'clock. But there was a band called Axe, Rock and Roll Party in the Streets. And I mean,
Ivan Axe shirt.
Axe opened up for Motley Crue and Heaven on December 11th.
On the
first
Shout
time
at the
I
Devil.
Yeah.
Shout at the Devil,
And at the Lloyd Noble halfway. And I was actually, myself and Brad White, when we were booking Rocklahoma in 2008, we resurrected Axe.
For that reason.
Song,
Oh,
yeah.
For that one reason right there.
Nostalgia
And
purposes
it's
for
all
you
because
guys.
of Zubek.
It's a knockdown, drag out, rock and roll party in the streets. Yep.
But you know, it was back then still a local scene. But nowadays, you look around, and so
on that same thread that they had posted the picture of Ichiro at Beam Live, somebody posted a picture. I'm assuming it was Chris McGill who posted it, but posted a picture of John Butcher and Otis on stage
yes.
playing together at the Samurai.
they were friends.
And dude, I guarantee you, every single square inch of both of those fretboards was on fire.
Hey, listen,
at the end
I
of that
saw
night.
that. I saw John Butcher used to hang out at my house, and he play. You know, I mean, the dude's phenomenal. But him and Otis together, that wasn't the only time Otis jammed with somebody. You know, I mean,
On that little bitty stage at the Samurai in the corner.
On that thread too, a guy named Jeff Blunt, who was in 12 O'Clock High, posted a picture of Neil Sean.
Yes,
And,
I saw it.
You know,
Yeah.
and Neil Sean Bad English played the Civic Center. And Bad English, Neil Sean jammed with Otis after the show because David Fitzgerald took him to the Samurai after that. But the night before Bad English, Stevie Ray Vaughan played the Civic Center. And Neil Sean and Dean Casanova, who's the drummer in Journey now, who used to be his brother-in-law, were hanging out at Stevie Ray Vaughan. And, you know,
So what
Hell
that be
yeah,
like?
you're
80
coming in
and,
at three early.
and back then, no one really knew who they were because he wasn't in Journey anymore. And
Wasn't that like 83, 84, right around in there?
maybe 86, 87, something like that. They had the date on there.
And they had the one HAHS or whatever. What was that with Neil
That
Sean?
was
Was that after?
before.
That was before?
Bad English had John Waite, the
Right,
singer,
right.
Neil Sean, Dean Casanova, and I forget who the bass player was. Matt Lemieux would know that. But anyway, I ended up giving Neil Sean and Dean a ride. Remember that old Oldsmobile 4-door jalopy? I had jalopies.
The land yacht?
Yeah. No, it wasn't that big. But anyway, I gave him a ride up there. And, you know, we just molded in. I think it was on a Monday night or whatever. But then the next night, this is when he played with David. He went back. You know, but then there was a guy that got on that blog named Jim McClellan who, what was he, Beaver?
Beaver.
Or Contemporary? I think he was Contemporary.
Maybe it was Contemporary.
One or the
Productions.
other, but he was a promoter rep. And so, you know, he pipes in there Def Leppard. Hell, I took Guns N' Roses in there. I took Metallica in there. And then remember when we had those, when I was getting sober, Dave went and we booked this. I talked to Chiro into letting us do Sunday nights.
Mm-hmm.
He'd give up any night but Thursday, Friday, or Saturday.
Right.
And we ended up doing, you know, Tortora, Four Horsemen, you name it. We did all these bands. And
No more metal.
no, he did that with Forte. No moshing, no metal. And you didn't. Here's the thing about him. You didn't want to mess with him because he was a black belt instructor. And if he ever got mad, and I only seen him do it a couple times, you wouldn't want to mess with that dude.
Yeah, he was a very even-keeled guy.
He didn't really need security.
No, not at all, dude.
No. And probably still doesn't to this day.
But back to the and you know, and just that whole night, it got me thinking too. You know, you see the pictures of the people that got up and jammed with Otis. You know, and that you look at that, and it's like that was the scene in Oklahoma City. You know, it was underground. But if you were in it, you were in it.
Because when I met you, Max, the big bands in Oklahoma City were Element
Right.
and Lure.
Well, they worked up to that.
Right.
You know, with Rob Miller opened the door with having lure play at the Samurai. And they did real well. And, you know, he'd get a night back. Me, I had to start with Element and local bands on the Mondays, the Tuesdays.
Mm-hmm. And then David Box had local bands too.
Yeah, and David Box. And, you know, so I was being able to get these bands in there. It wasn't really what was going on. They knew no covers. So, and he was very, very different about putting a couple of bands together. And so, but it was all, at the end of the day, he didn't care how good they were. It was all about who drank.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so,
did they bring people who had a good time?
And he'd give you the door. It didn't matter. One time, though, I got them all. It was, they had, I want to say it was Godsmack at the Fairgrounds Arena. But I booked Element. He gave me, and I knew that was coming. So I went in there and said, hey, Chiro, do you have this date open? It was a Friday.
Right.
And I put my ass on the line. I told him, I said, hey, can I get this date right here? I can feel it. I can feel the date, you know. And I can make it happen. And he's like, okay, I'll give you the date. And, you know, Godsmack and them wasn't popping just yet. So myself and the singer, the whole band, Element, we made these flyers because you could always get a free beer if you had a ticket stub. Mm-hmm. And so we put on this flyer, free beer with your ticket stub, come to the show, $3 or something like that. Also show your ticket and get a discount. And so the bar wasn't happening at all. You know, opening bands played. So our plan was, we took about 10 people, the band and us down there. We found out when the show was going to be out. And when it was over, we were out there just giving out handbills. Party, free, you know. Because people back then, people would grab stuff and, where's it at? Right now, right down the street. It's going on, you know.
Let me ask you, do you remember what capacity was there?
Whatever it was.
I mean, it was only like a couple hundred, wasn't it?
No, it was, I think, 300.
Maybe?
Maybe 300 pushing it. And I know there's been 800 in there before.
So you go down to a concert and you're looking to get 300 people. You can do it. You can
and
do
so
it.
we went down there, and it was one of the biggest doors he ever had. And that's where he
This started late.
No, well, it didn't happen till about 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, and his bar crowd on Friday night was, you know, because you had to go in there. For me, I went in there and just hung out and studied it. What bands, he taught me a lot of stuff by not even talking to me, just, you know, letting you be part of it. And the cool part about him is he would take a chance on you. If he took a chance on you, then, and this is how it's been for me since day one. This is why I never forget where I come from. If they take a chance on you, the idea of it is to go in there and never leave. And it's kind of like that's what's happened with the Baker Boys. You've seen that happen.
Absolutely.
You know, just like with, you know, bands like THC, who we started with from the street to they're still here. And, you know, your local scene. So what I'm getting at is, and Jay, you're in radio, is you look around. We're going to take Oklahoma City first. Today, if you're in a local band, I'm going to name off some places, and you tell me if there's any more. You have the Blue Note.
Yep.
You have Beer City.
Yep.
You have Resident Head.
Yep.
These are small venues.
And these are all in different areas.
All different sectors of the city, so to speak. You got a few places in Norman, the Deli.
Where's little Ronnie doing shows?
You have a VFW hall
you
for
go.
hardcore over there on South Penn.
Backroom Productions. They literally make their own room as necessary.
Anywhere. They'll do it in your house if they want you to. You know.
What's the place over there in
You got
used to
80,
be Rattle Bones.
you got 89th Street.
89th Street, yeah.
Nick's place.
You got 89th Street. This is just like music, you know. Blue Door if you're going acoustic.
Legendary spot.
You know, then you got the Tower Theater, which is a great place. You have the Diamond Ballroom.
Beam Live.
Beam Live up there that just opened at
50 Pin Place.
50 Pin Place. If you want to venture out, it's kind of not. It's in the city, but it's not in the city, but it's connected to the city. Bread's Place, Legends, and Chickasha.
Yep. 40 West.
40
Yukon.
West and Yukon. These are all Okie Tonk and Norman.
And more. Yeah.
More.
Brewer's Place downtown.
What's
it called now? Was it Oklahoma? What's it?
That's like the ranch.
The Ranch.
But it's that's country.
They do country and red dirt in there.
But what I'm getting at is
JJ's Alley still open.
all these venues I just named off in 2024 for live music. If this was 1994, you didn't have that. You know, and not only do you have this kind of locations, but then again, too, the backlash of it all is you have others that have been good that have closed, that, you know, that have been taken over, or they're still waiting to happen, like City Limits over there on Eastern. And you've got people, I get calls all the time of people, hey, let's do a venue, you know, and I need your help and all that. Well, that costs money. Time is money. And if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. You know, I mean.
And that takes more money.
This whole podcast here about the life and Max Baker Jr. is, and Jeff sitting to my right, Jay sitting to my left, watching and being part of it. We've came so close, but had to shut the doors. Why? Because we took off like bandits and we're hitting jackpots like nobody's business. And then one day the bottom fell out.
We've all made a lot of money putting on shows, and we've all lost a lot of money putting on shows.
When you wake up and you can't pay your bills and you can't eat, there ain't going to be nobody there for you. You know?
No, there's not.
I mean, it's, you know, it don't matter. So my deal is this. And then you look at, now you take the flip of it. Let's go all the way up to the bands that have made it. You know, where's the venues at now? You want to see a show? Oklahoma used to be a dead-ass state. I'm proud to say I've been part of helping it not become one due to the fact that casinos and other things that I've been able to be part of in the last 30 years. But you look around, okay, where do I want to go to shows? Let's take this weekend, for instance. You got Casino A doing so-and-so, you know, Choctaw, Weezer. Tonight, Leonard Skinner at the Windstar. Riverwind's got stuff. Who else? Brett Michaels is bringing in the new year at the Hard Rock. The list goes on, you know. But the fact of the matter is, then you look at, okay, arena acts. What are we looking for arenas? You've got the Diamond Ballroom. Now you've got the Criterion. You've still got the Civic Center Music Hall. You've got the Paycom Center. You know, this is, and so you got choices. But here's what else you don't. Here's what else you have, and this is what I see. And this is what's been said. And you can pipe in with this. All those bigger places have high dollar tickets with high dollar fees, making you really have to think about, do you want to go? What's it going to be?
It makes me laugh so many times when we break open the scrapbook and we're looking at these old show flyers and posters, and it says no fees
or low dose show.
Right.
$4.
Or you look at the ticket stub and there's no fees attached to it.
But then again, too, you got some old boy out here or some old band that's got together and they believe. They believe in their music. They believe in their self. They're trying to make something happen. all they need is a little bit of audience, you know. And if the audience they need isn't on the internet, the audience they need isn't on Spotify, the audience they need is right in front of their face, that needs to be able to where the person can listen and like and spread the word, you know, because
it's still about building that relationship. When we were selling tickets hand to hand, it was about building that relationship and that friendship with those people where they would want to see you play over and over again. And then it gets to the point where you're hanging out with these people when you don't have shows, and they're still buying tickets and coming to see you play. You build these lifelong friendships.
Well,
with
here's
people.
another thing. Or you build a friend. I'm going to take the Texas Hippie Coalition, for instance. This will be their 18th year, and I got to give it up for Big Dad. I love him with all my heart. But every year in April, they do the THC, Texas Hippie Coalition, family reunion. And that's where, and you know, they have, their fans are so known each other, they vote on who gets patched in at the ceremony that they have. It's a dinner. They all come and hang out. Not only do they come from all over the world to Oklahoma to be part of this. And it's a dinner, a fellowship. It's, you know, everything you could want to be, kind of like a VIP meet and greet, but this is our 18th year. You know, sometimes you got to support the people who support you, and they're very good at doing that. But it goes, and then they'll play a show the next day. But the fact of the matter is, you know, I see bands, I hear stuff, and you know, if I like your music, that's fine. If you play me a song and I listen to it and I like it, and Jay, you can point in on this, I want to see him play it live.
Yep.
And what I want to see is I want to see it played live real. I don't need no backing tracks. I don't need no backing vocals. I want
to see if you can really do it.
I want to see if you can play it, you know, because anybody can make it. And the way I say that is the world's greatest rock and roll band ever, the Rolling Stones, 2024, 80 years old, will get up on stages across the United States, and they will play it with no overdubs, no backing tracks, and if they miss a lick, so what? But that's the reality of it.
And they'll still be one of the highest grossing acts of the year.
What would Zubek say? They gotta give you more in 2024.
But no, now back to, you know, and we're talking about these venues. So, but then you got to look at the venue owner. The venue owner is how do I make this work? And what I'm seeing a lot of nowadays, and this reminds me of the old days whenever I first started going to shows, like when we met Pantera. Pantera, and I'll use them as an example. How You Made a Living, Pantera, Oliver Magnum, Madam X, Rat Child America. I could go on and on and on. But they had these clubs, Hard Rocks in Lawton, Joe's Garage in Fort Worth. But they played 4 sets. They started on a Tuesday. They ended on a Sunday. You usually had a band house in the back. Kerry Staten can tell you about all this. And they traveled around. And they played in all these houses. And you know what? They made money. They made a living. And they had the time of their life. There's a lot of kids out there nowadays that have seen that, read about it, and they want to do it. You know? I mean, don't everybody want to be a rock star? I mean, come on. And I know for me, I am a rock star. But that's because I want to be.
You are, Max.
I mean, I want to be. Hurt legs and all.
You paid your dues, man. Well, you made it happen.
You know, but I want to see other people do it. You know, I mean, listen, there's a whole youth out there, and you can see it too nowadays. And, you know, I used to think rock was dead. I used to think that it wasn't going to happen anymore, you know. But then you look at the rock side of it, the Struts, Dirty Honey, Plush, girl bands, just, you know, they're not on the radio yet, or they might be, but there's a whole scene. There's some kid coming to Kane's Ballroom that I will not miss.
Taj?
Yes.
I've been following that kid for like 3 years.
Yes.
We're definitely going to that.
And then
I've been wanting to see that kid for a long time.
Yeah. Also,
he's from Australia.
Also, too, there's some hot blues girl that I think is 14 or 15. I just read about her. She's been playing the blues in Nashville. She's going to play live on stage on New Year's Eve with, I get Lainey Wilson or one of them. But she's like a
virtuoso,
a home ground artist, blues.
Right.
And just, I mean, live music is still where it's at. I would say you be selective. You know, the next time you're going to flop down a $200 or $300 ticket, think about some local bands. Think about some local nights out.
There's a thing that I play in between songs on the local talent show. And in radio, those are called liners or sweepers or imaging. And it's just where the voice guy comes on and you know, says something funny or whatever, and he says your radio station, you know, frequency and name and call letters. But I wrote this one and had it recorded for me to use that says every band starts as a local band.
Right.
They do.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, every one of them, you know. I mean, and the cool part about it that I'm seeing is you got bands like Green Day. They started from the street. Guess where they're going to go promote their new album? Some dingy bar. You know? I mean.
Yep.
And
in Oakland or in
New
the
York.
Bay Area? In New York.
New York. Well, they started last time when they started their tour at Globe Live. They rehearsed at Kane's.
Yeah.
And then did
for a week.
you know, then did a show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Oklahoma, get off the couch, quit watching the TV, have you some fun in 2024, talk to a human next to you, try not to be mean, be loving, and listen to some music and spread the word.
Go watch a local band. Buy some merch. Support people in your community.
Come hang out with us. I got an idea. So, if I was to find a venue and have, you know, it really intrigues me because I want to do this. I would like to have get-togethers like they did like at Beam Live with Bellevue and Achiro and all the people come out, you know, because I think that's at some point in your life, you really need to see those people, you know?
Well,
and they really need to see you.
Well, Max, it's the 2024, or it's the 20th anniversary of my band's one and only full-length record. And by the time this comes out, the announcement will come out. We are remastering the record, going to put it out digitally on
Hot
Spotify.
Rod Bob.
And we are going to play at least one, maybe two shows. We're at least going to play one in Tulsa, maybe one there, one here.
You know, I mean, that's awesome. It's what I'm thinking about doing is pimping out my wheelchair and jumping a few cinder blocks before the show.
Let's do it. Let's do it. This has been the Here's the Deal podcast, the Max Baker Jr. story, where we have supported local music and have been a part of this music scene for so long. We wanted to do an episode to remind everyone that the local scene is still alive and well.
Yes, it is.
No matter how old you are, age doesn't matter.
Nope.
You know? It's what's in your heart.
That's it. That's the end.
There you go. Just like that. Hell yes.
That's going to be a good one.